looking at militarisation and land grab in Sri Lanka. My name is Wes Streeting. I'm an opposition member of Parliament in the United Kingdom Parliament, representing the main opposition party, which is the Labour Party. I'm also Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Tamils in the UK Parliament, which was a group established specifically to apply pressure on the UK government to raise the issue of Sri Lankan human rights and Tamil rights on the international stage, and also to raise awareness amongst parliamentary colleagues of both the historic and the ongoing human rights issues in Sri Lanka. We've got a great panel of speakers this afternoon. I'll introduce them in turn. I think looking around the room, many of you will already be very familiar with both the historic and ongoing human rights issues in Sri Lanka, and the efforts through the Human Rights Council to, particularly with the opportunity presented by a new government in Sri Lanka, to make some genuine progress on truth, justice and reconciliation, and also to take to task some of the, not just the historic human rights abuses in Sri Lanka, but also some of the ongoing challenges. And I think it's the ongoing challenges of militarisation and land grab that we're going to particularly focus on today. Our first speaker is one of my parliamentary colleagues. Paul Scully is, like me, a Member of Parliament elected last year at the 2015 general election. He's also a Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Tamils, and in Parliament he represents the governing party, which is the Conservative Party. So I'll turn over to Paul to make some opening remarks, and then we'll turn to the rest of the panel. Please give Paul a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Wes, and it's lovely to see you coming to find out more about what's going on the ground in Sri Lanka at the moment. So thank you very much for coming. You'll have to forgive me. The reason that I'm up first is that I have to do the walk of shame just for down there in about 20 minutes, because I've got to dash to get a plane back to the UK to get back to my constituency for this evening. So it's been my first visit to Geneva, and a very, very fleeting visit. But I'm going to be really interested in connecting with the group afterwards to see what was discussed and the response to the presentation that you're about to see. Likewise, I joined the All-Party Parliamentary Group very quickly after the election, partly because I've a significant Tamil community in my area of South London, partly because, but just by speaking to members of the Tamil community, you can see the issues that they've had to face, the horrors they've had to face, and the long path that they need to go along to get some sort of truth, justice and reconciliation. I have a number of Tamil schools in my area, and when I see the small children that learn about Tamil culture, dancing, singing and plays and these sort of things, you have to, that's absolutely to be welcomed, but you have to wonder how much of the actual details that they have to face in terms of the history, the recent history of what's happened in the northern part of Sri Lanka. Wes and I were at the commemoration recently in Parliament of the atrocities in Mullavatayal, and it was one of the hardest presentations I think I've had to sit through in the 14 months or so of being a Member of Parliament. Hearing about how hospitals were deliberately targeted after the coordinates were given out specifically to exclude them, how people were sliced open, how people lost their fathers, their children, and just things that you should never witness, let alone, you know, for us to have to hear about. But hear about them we must, because we do need to speak out, and we need to keep the pressure on, as Wes has said, the UK government, but coming through to the United Nations, the EU, all to put the pressure on the Sri Lankan government to move the process on as quickly as possible. So we have, I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the various disappearances that have had over a number of years, and the IDP camps that are with several thousands of people living in the north of the island, which is probably more about a little bit later. Some of the stuff that we've been working on the APG, Joe, though, is to make sure that we can get some sort of sense of independence on the judiciary, effectively, when we have witnesses coming to talk about potential war crimes and these sort of things, to give them confidence, especially the diaspora that's living outside, because the people that are here and the people that speak out in the United Nations and other countries are incredibly brave people, because they find it very hard to go back to Sri Lanka. They would find it very hard if they have family links back in Sri Lanka to be able to speak out on all of these issues. It's of concern to all of us when we hear about the land grabbing, the ongoing land grabbing, and the slow progress that's being made. You can't expect, and I know this from other countries, you cannot expect something quite as bad as this to be solved overnight. You can't expect all land to be returned to their rightful owners, all IDPs to be removed from camps and actually get back to their own places. But we need to see significant process. As Wes has said, we've got an opportunity now with a new government in Sri Lanka, with a new president, that I know the UK government, and certainly we do, feel that we've got that opportunity, that we've got a little bit more chance to push President Sirisena to actually act more and act faster. But faster is the key thing. My father was born in Burma, and I have seen there, when I travelled there in February, just in the transition of the government, you can see a sense of detachment between Aung San Suu Kyi changing the national government in the capital in Naypyidaw, and the atrocities and difficulties that are still going around in the ethnic regions by the military. And there is always a risk, and I'll be interested to find out the view of the panel and other people when I catch up later, on if there is a sense in Sri Lanka whether there is a detachment between the military that is actually, as I understand it, being increased in number in the north rather than decreasing, which is worrying in itself. Because you need to have, if you're going to have a sense of change by the national government, they obviously need to have control of the military. And it sounds very much that any politician in Sri Lanka is going to find that very difficult to grasp that control. When I talked about the fact that you can't solve things overnight, another country that I have a reasonable amount to do with is Bangladesh. Bangladesh obviously went through its own war of independence 40 odd years ago. And there's still echoes of that war now. If you travel around Bangladesh, if you look at the political differences and these sort of things, we need to make sure that in Sri Lanka we are learning the lessons of these countries around the region, and making sure that we don't tread down those same paths. But that will only be done if you can actually have a system that is open, that is transparent, that is seen to be accommodating both sides, and certainly from discussions with my Tamil friends, that just doesn't seem to be the case at all. So what we need to be doing, I mean, people have asked me before this afternoon actually about Brexit, about what happens with the UK. How does that change our relationship with other countries? How might it change our relationship with what the UK government, what pressure the UK government are putting on Sri Lanka? My sense is that we have a new Prime Minister, we have a new Foreign Office ministerial team, but there's no change in policy. I was speaking to the Foreign Office just a couple of days ago, and they know that they're looking at the next statement in March 2017, and it's very incumbent on us as panellists and any delegations here, and you, the NGOs here, to make sure that we keep the pressure up, to keep the profile up. Not just to March 2017, not just to the next statement, but obviously beyond that. Britain's going to be a member of the European Union for the next 2 years at least, so we will still be speaking to our European colleagues on that internal basis and hopefully leading the way there. But we also want to lead the way here in the United Nations and make sure that people speak out on behalf of this process. And we do need to be speeding up the return of land rather than seeing the intensification of use for the benefit of the military in Sri Lanka, which, as I say, you'll see in the presentation later, is of concern to us. Thank you.